Hi everyone, Spider-Man 1991 here to talk about the comics for the week. I didn't have a video last week because I was on vacation, so that's why. Alright, first off, the conclusion to Grim Hunt. I felt the conclusion was appropriate because, well, it starts off with Peter finally releasing his anger over the deaths of Maddie Franklin and Kane, so he takes his old black costume on. And for the rest of the issue, it's pretty much the hunters have now become the hunted, as Peter's feeling absolutely nothing but just wants revenge on all of the Kravinoffs. So he's taking them out one by one, and then he reaches to Sasha Kravinoff, and he pulls a whole Kane move on her face. And Kraven shows up, and then he and Kraven go all at it, and Sasha realizes that all the spiders have been hunting the Kravinoffs, and all these spiders have Aloshi and Chameleon in the web. And now Spider-Man has Kraven. He's about to stab him, but then, forgot to mention this, but Madam Web dies, and she passes her gift on to Julia Carpenter, and Julia shows up and shows Peter a future where if he did kill Kraven, his life would just begin to unravel. Heroes would turn on him, he becomes a dark menace, with no responsibilities, nothing left to lose, and just killing off all his enemies. So she tells Peter that he's the better of them and must hold the web together. And of course, Spider-Man realizes the truth and then just walks off, leaving Kraven to be an undead being who can only be killed by him. But the Kravinoffs leave, and the next morning, Spider-Man, Ariana, and Julia have buried Kane and called him Kane, and given him a tombstone called Kane Parker. And Ariana has been given Julia's old costume, and she decides to stick with her original codename, Ariana. And Julia Carpenter goes off, stating that she is blind now, but she still can see the future, just as Madam Web did. And also for the Kravinoffs, they all wind up in the Savage Land. Kraven kills Vladimir and Sasha, then tells Aloshi and Anna to go off, and whoever comes back will start a new family with him. Though my money is on Anna. And we just get two backup features here, which I don't really feel like discussing. You either like them or you didn't. But Grim Hunt, the conclusion is very good to this. It just seemed appropriate that they buried Kane correctly. They buried Kane, and that the status quo has been changed, and that Kraven is now in the Savage Land to really be, which is a very appropriate place for him to spend all eternity, I guess. There is an epilogue on the last page of this comic, but I don't want to give it away, so, yep. Okay, Avengers Academy number 2. I enjoyed the first issue, and like the first issue, this one focuses on one member of the new recruits. As the previous one focused on Vale, we now get a look into the mind of Finesse. As Finesse's narration starts off with she says that she's good at math and everything, but the one thing she can't understand is people. And from last issue, though, most of the new recruits are really ticked off that the teachers of Avengers Academy only chose them because Osborn tortured them the most, and they're worried that they're going to be the next supervillains. So Finesse starts thinking about her life, and she goes to talk to Hank Pym about everything, and she starts to question her parents about how her powers came from, and that leads her to a theory that Taskmaster might be her true father. So Pym tries to tell her that genetics don't mean a thing for who she is, and makes her watch a documentary about Pietro, Quicksilver. And it pretty much covers all the teams in Quicksilver's gives you a brief view of Quicksilver's life, and then she decides she tells Hank that she understands everything, goes to see Quicksilver, and reveals that she knows that the Skrull story he told everyone is a lie. Even though Hank Pym figured it out, he hasn't told anyone because he believes in second chances. So Finesse makes him an offer. She'll keep his secret a secret if he teaches her everything that Magneto taught her from the Brotherhood of Mutants. So yeah. Alright, if I had to pick, I think some of those kids might turn out to be super. Now this is the possibility that Finesse might be the only one of those heroes to become a supervillain. I'm just saying that everyone else, well, so far Vale seems to be fine. Reptile, he might be a hero, but Finesse so far is kind of on my radar towards villain than hero. Alright. Next up, Invincible Iron Man number 28. Not much really covering here. Well, Tony Stark and War Machine do go to Japan to figure out what the hell Detroit Steel is, where they meet Justine Hammer, and she tries to explain, and she tells Stark to basically butt out since he's no longer in the weapons game. And then her daughter Sasha shows her that it was his armor and stuff. And meanwhile, Stark resilient, Tony's just recruiting more stories. But Tony starts to think to himself that he's seen that girl before, Sasha Hammer, and he starts to gather some evidence to try to prove he's right. But anyways, all that's involved with the Stark resilient thing so far is that he's hired 4 people to help build his repulsor-powered car, but now he's just now he wants them to build it in 6 weeks in time to a convention. And so Tony watches this tape and realizes that there's a connection between that girl and the girlfriend of Ezekiel Stain, so it leads Tony to believe that basically that Detroit Steel is hammer and Stain powered. Invincible Iron Man number 28 wasn't really much of a big exciting moment for me. I mean, I figured Tony wasn't going to embarrass himself, but still, it just didn't seem like there's been much going on here lately. It's just Tony building up his company, and now he's completely aware of Detroit Steel and thinks he's close, but this was just pretty much an average issue for me. Alright, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 12. This is actually written by Brian Michael Bendis, and if you've been reading his Avengers series, then you've got to agree that nothing's going on there, but this one is actually pretty good, because, okay, heads up, this is not Peter Parker. If you've read the last issue, you know it's the Chameleon. So basically what the Chameleon does, he's trying to figure out who Peter Parker is. He immediately assumes MJ is his girlfriend and starts making out with her. First it looks like she's kind of digging it, but then she tells him to get off, and he basically acts like a dick, and she gets out of the cab on what I think is one of the bridges in New York City. I can't specify which one, but he goes home to the Parker residence, kills the cab driver, steals some money, then goes to the Parker residence and starts to figure out, wait, where the hell does this kid live? Thinks Bobby Drake is probably his brother, or Aunt May is his grandmother, and Johnny Storm might be his other brother or something. And each time, and interesting note though, each time when he sees Bobby for the first time, he says, okay, it feels really cold in here. Then he sees Johnny and says, okay, now it's warm. And goes up to Peter's attic room and concludes that he's a nerd. And he gets ticked off and trying to figure out who this kid is, what's so important, why the hell does he have all this power, and what does he do with it. He's living basically a normal life. He meets Gwen and he kind of kisses her and stuff, but then he tells Gwen that Mary Jane made the move on him in the cab and he got out and stuff. And the next day, the Spider-Man, Peter Parker and his amazing friends are walking to school when they notice the dead cabbie that Chameleon killed the night before, so they basically just go off. So they basically just move along, since Peter has no idea and he's the undeclared leader of the group, so. Next day, MJ sees Peter and just runs away scared. And he makes a scene, and Chameleon makes a scene by throwing Flash Thompson up against a locker and basically calls him a dumbass, and that if he killed him, no one would really care. So he goes off. Gwen's surprised. Peter sees MJ again, tries to get MJ to reveal the big Parker secret, then kisses her. And of course, everyone, Johnny, Bobby, and Gwen see that, so Gwen goes off hurt. And Peter just doesn't really care. And Peter, or Chameleon, just doesn't really care. Okay, I gotta stop right here. Stay tuned for part 2.